Welcome to Verifact. This content is created for educational and documentary storytelling purposes on Black Dolphin Prison, the untold secrets of Russia's most brutal high-security facility. If you think you've seen the brutal prisons in the world, you haven't. Subscribe now, because what happens next inside Black Dolphin will stay with you long after this story ends. The alarm didn't ring. That was the first thing that made it wrong. Inside one of the most secure prison blocks in Russia, alarms always rang, even for small things. A drop tray, a late count, a guard pressing the wrong button. But this time, nothing. Officer Pavel Morozov stood still in the hallway, staring at the open cell door. Open. That wasn't possible. Not here. Not in Black Dolphin. Every inmate inside this facility was considered too dangerous to ever walk free again. Life sentences. No second chances. No mistakes allowed. And yet, cell 217 was open. Close it, a younger guard whispered behind him, his voice tight. Pavel didn't move, because he could already see inside. The bed was made perfectly. The metal sink was dry. No signs of struggle. No noise. No movement. Just emptiness. Inmate. Pavel called out. Silence. He stepped closer. Slowly. Carefully. Every step echoed louder than it should have. He reached the doorway and looked inside. Nothing. The man who was supposed to be there was gone. And in Black Dolphin, that didn't happen. Ever. The inmate's name was Viktor Sokolov, convicted 10 years earlier. A man described in reports as calm, controlled, and extremely dangerous. But Pavel wasn't thinking about the file. He was thinking about the rules. No one moves without permission. No doors open without command. No inmate disappears. Yet here he was, standing in front of proof that something impossible had already happened. Call it in, Pavel said. The young guard hesitated. If we report this, it's going to... Call it in, Pavel repeated. Because deep down he already knew. This wasn't a mistake. This was something much worse. Minutes later, the corridor filled with movement. Boots. Voices. Orders. Senior officers arrived fast. Too fast. That was the second thing that felt wrong. Because normally, nothing moved quickly in this place. Except now. Who opened this door? One officer demanded. No one, Pavel said. The officer stepped inside the cell, looked around, then turned back. Where is he? Pavel didn't answer. Because there was no answer. A search began immediately. Every corridor, every locked section, every hidden corner. Nothing. No signs of escape. No broken locks. No damaged systems. It was as if Viktor Sokolov had simply vanished. Hours passed. The prison went into full lockdown. No one in. No one out. And still, nothing. That's when investigator Alexei Volkov arrived. He didn't wear a uniform, didn't raise his voice, didn't rush. But the moment he stepped inside, everything changed. Show me the cell, he said calmly. Pavel led him down the same corridor, the same door, still open. Volkov stopped just outside it. He didn't step in right away. Instead, he studied the frame, the hinges, the lock. Then, he looked at Pavel. You said no one opened this? Yes. Volkov nodded slowly. Then he stepped inside. His eyes moved across the room, taking in every detail. The bed, the walls, the floor. Then he stopped. Bring me the file, he said. Minutes later, Viktor Sokolov's file was in his hands. Volkov flipped through it quickly. Crime reports, interrogations, psychological evaluations. Then he paused. Strange, he murmured. What? Pavel asked. Volkov looked up. This man was not supposed to be here. Silence. What do you mean? Pavel asked. Volkov tapped the file. He was transferred here 8 years ago, but there's no record of why. Pavel frowned. That's not possible. Volkov gave a small, cold smile. And yet here it is. Something cold settled in Pavel's chest. Because missing paperwork in a place like this was not normal. It was dangerous. Volkov continued reading. Then he froze. What is it? Pavel asked. Volkov slowly turned the file around and pointed to a single line. A note, hidden deep in the report. 3 words. Do not release. Pavel blinked. That's standard for life sentences. Volkov shook his head. No. He tapped the paper again. This isn't a legal order. He leaned closer. This is a warning. The air in the room felt heavier. Because now, this wasn't just a missing inmate. This was something buried. Something hidden. And someone had just uncovered it. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the hallway. Investigator. Volkov stepped out. An officer stood there, pale. You need to see this. They followed him quickly. Down another corridor. Deeper into the prison. To a section rarely used. The officer stopped at a storage door. It was locked, he said. Volkov nodded. Open it. The door creaked slowly. The smell inside was cold. Still. Volkov stepped in first. Pavel followed. And then, they both stopped. Because, on the floor, there was something they didn't expect. Not a weapon. Not a tool. A uniform. A guard's uniform. Folded neatly. Placed carefully. As if someone wanted it to be found. Volkov crouched down. Picked it up. His eyes narrowed. This doesn't belong here, he said quietly. Pavel looked closer. Then his heart skipped. Because stitched on the chest was a name. A name that made no sense. Officer Pavel Morozov. His own name. The room went silent. Because, somehow, somewhere, someone had worn his identity and walked freely inside Black Dolphin. Volkov stood slowly, and for the first time, there was tension in his voice. This wasn't an escape, he said. Pavel swallowed hard. Then what is it? Volkov looked at the uniform, then back at him. This, he said quietly, is an operation. And somewhere inside the prison, someone was still watching, waiting. And the worst part? They were already one step ahead. The cameras showed nothing. That was the first real proof that something inside Black Dolphin was broken. Investigator Alexei Volkov stood in the control room, arms folded, eyes locked on the monitors. Rows of screens flickered in cold blue light. Every corridor, every gate, every cell block. But between 2:11 a.m. and 02:17 a.m., there was a gap. Not static, not interference, just nothing. As if those 6 minutes had been erased. Impossible, the chief technician said quietly. The system records everything. Even during outages, there's backup. Volkov didn't look away from the screen. Then explain this. The technician swallowed. I can't. That answer hung in the air. Because in a prison like this, I don't know, was not acceptable. Volkov turned slowly. Who has access to the system? Only authorized personnel, the technician said quickly. Senior staff, internal security, and oversight. Oversight? Volkov asked. The technician hesitated. Then nodded. External. Volkov's eyes narrowed slightly. That was the third thing that didn't fit. First, a missing inmate. Second, a guard identity used from the inside. Now, an external access point to one of the most secure prisons in the country. Get me the list, Volkov said. While the technician scrambled, Volkov stepped back, thinking. Someone had erased 6 minutes. 6 minutes was not random. It was precise, controlled. Enough time to move a man. Enough time to disappear. But not enough time to escape the prison. Which meant only one thing. He's still here, Volkov murmured. Meanwhile, Officer Pavel Morozov sat alone in a small office. The uniform with his name lay on the table in front of him. He stared at it. Same stitching. Same fabric. Same badge placement. It was identical. Too perfect. A knock came at the door. Come in, Pavel said. Volkov entered quietly. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Volkov gestured toward the uniform. Tell me, he said calmly. When was the last time you saw this? Pavel frowned. I wear it every shift. Volkov shook his head slightly. No, not yours. He leaned forward. This one. Pavel hesitated. Because the truth was, he didn't know. And that terrified him. I don't remember, he admitted. Volkov nodded, as if expecting that answer. Someone copied you, he said. Pavel looked up sharply. What? Your identity, Volkov continued. Your movements. Your access. He tapped the table. They walked through this prison as you. Pavel's chest tightened. That's not possible. Volkov held his gaze. And yet it happened. Silence filled the room. Because if someone could become a guard, then no one inside this prison was safe. Not even the guards. The investigation moved deeper. Volkov requested access to areas rarely opened. Storage rooms. Maintenance tunnels. Old sections of the facility. Places most guards didn't even know existed. Pavel followed him through it all. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. Less movement. Less light. Until it felt like they had stepped into a part of the prison that had been forgotten. They stopped in front of a narrow corridor. No cameras here, Pavel said. Volkov looked up. The ceiling was bare. No wires. No lenses. Convenient, he said. They walked forward, each step echoing. At the end of the corridor, a door. Old. Metal. Different from the others. No record of this section, Pavel said quietly. Volkov reached for the handle. It was unlocked. That alone was enough to send a chill through both of them. He pushed the door open. Darkness. Then a faint hum. Lights flickered on. And what they saw didn't belong in a prison. Computers. Rows of them. Screens glowing softly. Cables running across the floor. This wasn't storage. This was a control center. Hidden. Who built this? Pavel whispered. Volkov didn't answer. He was already moving. Checking the screens. Data logs. Access records. Then he stopped. Because one screen was still active. Displaying a live feed. From inside the prison. Pavel leaned closer. That's Block C. Volkov nodded slowly. Yes. But something was wrong. The angle. The position. It wasn't from a fixed camera. It was moving. Following. Tracking. Pavel's voice dropped. That's not one of ours. Volkov's jaw tightened. No, he said quietly. It's not. Someone had been watching the prison from inside, without being part of the system. Volkov scrolled through the logs, then froze. What is it? Pavel asked. Volkov stepped aside. Look. Pavel leaned in. A list of entries appeared. Names, dates, times, movements. Each line recorded a transfer, but not official transfers. No paperwork, no signatures, just names, and times they disappeared. Pavel's heart began to race. How many, he asked. Volkov scrolled. The list kept going. Dozens. Maybe more. This isn't one missing inmate, Volkov said. This is a pattern. Pavel stepped back slowly. Where are they going? Volkov didn't answer. Because he already knew the truth was worse than the question. Before he could speak, a noise. Behind them, a soft click. They both turned. The door, closing. Slowly. Volkov moved fast. But it was too late. The door slammed shut. Locked. Again. Pavel rushed forward, pulling at it. Nothing. No handle on this side, he said. Volkov's eyes moved quickly around the room. Thinking. Calculating. They know we're here, Pavel whispered. Volkov nodded. Yes. Then he looked back at the screen. At the moving camera feed. Still watching. Still tracking. But now, it wasn't following someone else. It was focused on them. Watching them. In real time. And then, a message appeared on the screen. Just one line. Simple. Cold. You should have stopped. The room fell silent. Because whoever was behind this was no longer hiding. They were speaking. Directly. And that meant one thing. This was no longer an investigation. It was a warning. And the next move would decide who made it out alive. The screen flickered. The message stayed. You should have stopped. No name. No face. No explanation. Just a warning. Officer Pavel Morozov stepped back slowly, his breathing uneven. They're watching us, he said. Investigator Alexei Volkov didn't respond immediately. His eyes stayed locked on the monitor. They've been watching for a long time, he said quietly. The room felt smaller now. Heavier. Every screen. Every cable. Every shadow. It all felt alive. Pavel moved to the door again, pulling hard. Still locked. We're trapped, he said. Volkov finally turned. No, he replied calmly. They want us to think that. He walked back to the central console. If they wanted us gone, we wouldn't be here. Pavel frowned. Then why lock us in? Volkov's gaze sharpened. To show us something. Silence. Because deep down, Pavel knew he was right. This wasn't panic. This wasn't chaos. This was controlled. Planned. Volkov began searching the system again. Faster now. More focused. Files opened. Logs scrolled. Then, he found it. A hidden directory. No label. No date. Just a blank folder buried deep in the system. He clicked it. At first, nothing. Then the screen filled with video files. Dozens of them. Each one labeled only by numbers. Pavel stepped closer. What is this? He asked. Volkov opened the first file. The screen came to life. A corridor. Inside the prison. But not one Pavel recognized. The lighting was different. The walls older. The camera moved forward slowly. Then stopped. A door. It opened. Inside, a man sat at a table. Calm. Still. Not restrained. Pavel leaned closer. That's not standard procedure, he said. Volkov didn't reply. He was watching the man's face. Then the man spoke. Not loudly. Not angrily. Just clearly. They told me I would disappear, the man said. Pavel's stomach tightened. Volkov paused the video. Look at him, he said. Pavel nodded. He's not afraid. Volkov clicked to the next video. Another man. Different room. Same setup. They said I would never leave, the man said. Next video. Another face. They said no one would know. Pavel stepped back. This is an interrogation, he whispered. Volkov's voice was cold. No. It's something else. They kept watching. Each video showed the same pattern. Inmates. Calm. Controlled. Speaking directly to the camera. No violence. No struggle. Just statements. Then Volkov opened the final file. The most recent one. The screen flickered. And Pavel froze. Because this time, he recognized the face. Viktor Sokolov. The missing inmate. Alive. Sitting in the same chair. Looking directly into the camera. Volkov didn't pause. They watched. Sokolov leaned forward slightly. They told me I was dangerous, he said. His voice steady. They told me I could never leave this place. Pavel's heart pounded. Volkov didn't blink. Sokolov's eyes shifted slightly, as if he was looking at someone behind the camera. But they were wrong, he continued. A pause. Then, he smiled. Not wide. Not obvious. Just enough to feel wrong. Because I was never the one they were afraid of. The screen went black. Silence filled the room. Pavel's voice shook. What does that mean? Volkov didn't answer right away. Because now, everything was starting to fit. The missing records. The erased footage. The hidden control room. The list of names. These weren't transfers, Volkov said slowly. They were removals. Pavel stared at him. Removed where? Volkov looked back at the screen. At the truth, he said. Pavel shook his head. That doesn't make sense. Volkov stepped closer. It does. He pointed to the system logs. Every name on that list disappears from the official record. Pavel's chest tightened. So they're erased? Volkov nodded. Not just from the prison. A pause. From everything. The weight of that hit hard. Because that meant no trial updates, Pavel whispered. No records. No existence, Volkov finished. Silence. Because now they understood. Black Dolphin wasn't just a prison. It was something else. A place where people didn't just serve time. They vanished. But one question remained. Why? Pavel asked. Volkov looked at the screen again. At Sokolov's final words. Then he said something that made the room feel even colder. Because someone is choosing who disappears. Before Pavel could respond, a loud click echoed behind them. The door unlocked. Slowly, deliberately, they turned. The door opened. No one there. Just the empty corridor beyond. Volkov didn't hesitate. Move, he said. They stepped out quickly. Back into the prison. But something had changed. The air felt different. Quieter. Too quiet. As they walked, guards passed by. Normal. Routine. As if nothing had happened. Pavel grabbed one of them. "Did you hear anything?" he asked. The guard frowned. "Hear what?" Pavel hesitated. "The lockdown, the search, the missing inmate." The guard looked confused. "What missing inmate?" Pavel froze. Volkov stepped forward. "Viktor Sokolov," he said. The guard shook his head. "No one by that name is here." Pavel's pulse spiked. "That's not possible." The guard pulled away. "I think you're mistaken." He walked off. Pavel turned to Volkov. "They're lying." Volkov didn't respond. Because he already knew. They weren't lying. They didn't know. Volkov rushed to the records office. Pulled up the database. Searched the name. Nothing. No Viktor Sokolov. No cell 217. No incident. It was all gone. Erased. Just like the others. Pavel's voice dropped to a whisper. "They erased him that fast?" Volkov stared at the screen. "No," he said quietly. "He was never meant to exist." Silence. Because that meant something even worse. This wasn't damage control. This was design. Careful. Precise. Planned long before tonight. Volkov stepped back slowly, then reached into his pocket. Pulled out a small device. A recorder. He pressed play. Sokolov's voice filled the air again. "They were wrong." Pavel looked at him. "You recorded it?" Volkov nodded. "They can erase their system," he said. "But not mine." For the first time, there was a small shift. Hope. But it didn't last long. Because, suddenly, the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then went out. Total darkness. The entire prison fell silent. No alarms. No voices. Nothing. Just the sound of breathing. Pavel's voice trembled. "What's happening?" Volkov didn't answer. Because deep down, he already knew. The system wasn't failing. It was resetting. And they were no longer part of it. A faint red light flickered on. Emergency mode. Just enough to see shadows. Movement. At the end of the corridor. A figure. Standing still. Watching them. Pavel stepped back. "Who is that?" he whispered. The figure didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stood there. Then, slowly, it turned. And walked away. Into the darkness. Volkov took a step forward. But stopped. Because he understood something in that moment. They weren't chasing the truth anymore. The truth was controlling them. And somewhere inside Black Dolphin, the system was still running. Still watching. Still choosing. And the worst part? Now, it knew their names too. Subscribe for more fascinating crime stories.